Hi guys, it's me Chazza HD and welcome to the qualifying watch-along for the 2020 Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. Still hard to say that is, and still in my mind it's the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola. But as I said earlier, for the practice watch-along, we are finally back at Imola, and today is qualifying day, and in just under 30 minutes time we'll be qualifying after an interesting practice session this morning. The running order doesn't seem to be, say, all over the place. I think the top three definitely is going to be Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen. Who knows what order it will be in as of yet, but I think definitely those three will be in the top three. And then after that, it's going to be a close fight in the midfield. We know that, but it's not too all over the place, even though there was a couple surprises in the practice session earlier on. Great to see you guys here, as always, and great to see you here for qualifying today. Again, getting underway in just under 30 minutes time. By the way, if you did not see the practice watch-along earlier, link below in the description. You can go and watch it there. And also the review of last weekend's Portuguese Grand Prix, also in the description down below, is a link. Now, before we get into how the teams, in my opinion, are looking going into qualifying and how I think they're going to do, let's first look at the actual results of the practice session. The only practice session of the weekend that finished about 2 hours ago. Here are the results. Lewis Hamilton was P1 by about 0.3 of a second from Max Verstappen second. Valtteri Bottas third. Pierre Gasly P4. Great job, especially when you consider that you can see there on the tyre graphic that he only used the soft compound tyre once to get that P4. So maybe there's more pace to come from Pierre Gasly. Fifth, Charles Leclerc. Then sixth and seventh, the two Renaults of Ricciardo and Ocon. Eighth, Kvyat. Ninth, Albon. And 10th, Lance Stroll. AlphaTauri, I think, are the biggest surprise so far this weekend. I thought they would be decently quick, but I didn't think they would be, fourth and eighth in practice and looking quite good going into the session. Alex Albon, though, also looking quite poor. Just over a second off Max's pace, his teammate's pace, on the same compound tyre. Not looking good at all for Alex Albon. And then the rest of the field, Perez 11th, then Vettel in 12th, then Grosjean, Sainz, Giovinazzi, Norris. The reason the two McLarens were so low down is because they did their best time on the medium compound tyre. So there's definitely more pace to come from those McLarens. And 15th, Antonio Giovinazzi. 16th Norris, 17th Raikkonen, 18th Russell, 19th Magnussen, and 20th is Nicholas Latifi. Now, let's go back to some of these pictures. These pictures, by the way, are some pictures earlier from practice at Imola. Now, based off of the only practice session we've had so far, it's, again, very, very hard to say what is going to happen, because normally when we have the 3 practice sessions during a race weekend, by the time you get to practice, the start of practice 3, you have a good idea of who is where. Practice 3 only goes to confirm it. But, with only 1 practice session, it's still hard to say what really is going to happen. Again, I think the top 3, as usual this season, is going to be Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen in some sort of order. But then after that, from P4 to P13 or P14, I have no idea who will finish where. No, again, Renault and AlphaTauri in practice looked quick. But maybe McLaren, when they put the soft tyre on, maybe they'll be a lot quicker. Maybe Racing Point will be quicker. Maybe Ferrari have got some extra pace. It's so close in that midfield pack. And because, again, we've only had 1 practice session, it's very hard to say, this is what it should be like in qualifying. Again, top 3, it'll be normal. And then after that, if I was to have my best guess, this is what I think will happen. I think, say, 4th, 5th, and 6th, and 7th, and 8th, and 9th and 10th. I'm trying to fit certain cars and certain drivers into certain places, and it's hard to pick which car or driver I think will be in, a certain place. I think Daniel Ricciardo will be P4 in qualifying because I think he looks very good earlier on, and I think the Renault is probably the best looking midfield car that I saw in practice. The AlphaTauri is close, but I think the Renault looked just a tad better. So I'd say Ricciardo probably P4, and then after that, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, you're looking at a battle between, and for 9th and 10th for the rest of the positions, I think you're looking at a battle between Ocon, of course, Ricciardo's teammate, Leclerc, Gasly, the two McLarens, and the 2 Racing Points. Now, Gasly and Ocon, I think will get into the next, or will get into the top 10 and will have some good grid positions. Gasly looks very good in the morning. Also, Ocon looked good, but also he has raced here before, so he does have experience, and that is vital compared to other drivers on the grid. So I think Ocon will get into the top 10 and get a decent position. I think Leclerc will get into the top 10. Where he'll qualify, I have no idea. Pace-wise, I don't think Ferrari are good enough to be P5, P6, but we know that he has been dragging unbelievable amounts of lap time out of that car, at the last couple races for Ferrari to be, quite frankly, bailed out of humiliation and misery, which they had so many times in 2020. So, with Ocon, Gasly, Ricciardo, and Leclerc making it, then you have the 2 McLarens and the 2 Racing Points. And because McLaren were on mediums earlier, their best runs, it's hard to say. It really is hard to say who will win that fight out of McLaren and Racing Point. And of course, in the Constructors, that is the big fight with Renault also for 3rd place. So it's going to be the fight to get into Q3. Every Grand Prix this season has been thrilling. And it's always been super, super, super close. I think today it's going to be especially important and especially critical. Because again, after this weekend, 4 races to go. 1 race in Turkey, 2 in Bahrain. Of course, the 2 Bahrain races are taking place different layouts. The second one is basically an oval race. I'm sure Ferrari will enjoy a lot. And then, of course, the final race is at Yas Marina in Abu Dhabi. So, if, you get Gasly and Leclerc making it, and Ocon, Ocon, a driver who doesn't usually make it consistently into Q3 based on 2020 and what he's done in 2020, you're looking at a very, again, critical fight to get into the top 10. And my guess, if I was to, predict now who will complete the rest of the top 10 in getting through, I would probably say, I think Lance Stroll will get through because I think he's raced here before, so I think that experience will help him. I think he'll get through. And then we say one of the McLarens, but I have no idea what McLaren that will be. Because I don't think we know absolutely for sure who is the quicker McLaren this weekend. Meaning a Racing Point and McLaren, if, Gasly, Ocon, Leclerc, Ricciardo make it through, one McLaren, 1 Racing Point, or 2 Racing Points and, will be knocked out, or 2 McLarens will be knocked out. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. Daniel Kvyat in the AlphaTauri. I think his teammate Gasly, of course, will make it into the top 10, but I just don't think Daniel will, because qualifying this season has been very lackluster for Daniel. In the races, Daniel's been pretty good. You look at his race pace and his race performance, I would say actually he's been good enough to keep his seat. Problem is, he's coming back from too far on the grid every time, and I don't see that being any different this weekend, so I think he'll probably get knocked out in 13th or 14th place. And then Sebastian Vettel will get knocked out in Q2 as well. I don't see Vettel having a good qualifying. I don't see him having really a chance of getting into the top 10. I just don't see it. Not because he's not good enough, but because the car just poor. It really is poor. And then for the final three teams, Williams, Alfa Romeo, Haas, I think Alfa Romeo have probably the best car out of those three. That doesn't mean they'll qualify, the best out of those teams, though. I think it'll probably be Russell, again, qualifying the best out of those three teams and those selection of drivers. But I think Alfa Romeo do have slightly the better car compared to Williams and Haas in qualifying trim, and in race trim it is going to be Alfa Romeo who have the better car because, well, they have, out of those three teams so far this season, they've always been able to progress up the field and are, good look after their tyres. Of course, have drivers who are good or decent enough in Giovinazzi, but also with Raikkonen very good in looking after tyres and having just general good race pace. But I think definitely, and it's been the case every weekend, but the battle to look out for is from P4 all the way to what? P13, 14? Who knows who could win that battle? Could be anyone. Could be Ricciardo, could be Leclerc, could be Albon, could be Gasly, Sainz, Norris, Stroll, Perez, Ocon. You name it. And I got to say, it is great that we have, the midfield that close. It is really great. And I think if, let's say, Mercedes weren't in Formula 1 and Max wasn't as quick as he is, and these were, battles for victory, I think we'd be absolutely on the edge of our seats every single weekend for qualifying and the race, because in that midfield pack, you just don't know what is going to happen. You just don't know. And it basically, because of how close the cars are, it comes down essentially to the quality of the driver, either at a particular circuit or just in general. And that's why I think Daniel Ricciardo, who has been great this season, that's why I think he will end up being best of the rest, P4. Charles Leclerc should be in there somewhere, but I think it'll probably be Daniel Ricciardo. But I honestly can't wait for qualifying. Again, only one practice session. Teams don't really know where they stand, which I think is great for qualifying. A lot better, obviously, than knowing, they're going to qualify most likely in this position and all of that. It's great that they go into a bit of an unknown, very similar to the Nürburgring. And hopefully, if we do get a very exciting session and exciting race tomorrow because of the lack of race running in general, hopefully the 2-day weekend will continue, because I would actually like to see 2-day weekends from now on. Because, with 3 practice sessions, 2 of those practice sessions are mostly pointless in terms of entertainment. The only meaningful practice session when there's 3 practice sessions is practice 2, because it takes place at the time of day where the race normally takes place. So the temperature is representative. And, they've got their eye in after practice 1. So, they've got working on the setup and they've already got some kind of basis for that. I think it's a lot better and more exciting. And also, cheaper to run for the sport if they just have a 2-day weekend. Just one practice session at 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. And then qualifying, 2 or 3 hours later. I just think that's a much better way of having a weekend, rather than practice 1, practice 2, practice 3, and most of the practice action being boring because the teams are just busy collecting data most of the time. And we know that that is the case. But yeah, hopefully we get an exciting qualifying and race that does showcase that a 2-day weekend is, in my opinion, the best option going forward. But before I go on to you guys in the chat, as we are approaching qualifying, let me just show the standings for the Drivers' Championship and Constructors' Championship. Because, of course, when it comes to certain finishing positions in the Drivers and the Constructors, even though there are no points scored for Saturday, if you've watched races around this track before, you'll know that track position isn't absolutely everything, but it is very, very important to your end result. So, let's first get onto the driver's standing. So, Lewis Hamilton leading by almost 100 points and is soon to wrap up the Drivers' Championship. I don't think he can do it this weekend, but I think he can wrap it up in Turkey. He's most likely going to do it in Turkey or Bahrain, let's be honest. Bottas second, only 17 points clear of Max Verstappen, who is third. Ricciardo fourth, just about winning that battle for P4 in the drivers. Leclerc fifth, then Perez, Norris, Albon, Gasly, Sainz and Stroll. And then the rest of the drivers. Ocon 12th, 13th Vettel. That's still very sad to see, honestly, that Sebastian is down in 13th place, but just the way it is. 14th Kvyat, 15th Hulkenberg, still 15th ahead of all those drivers below. Just simply because the Racing Point is that quick compared to the Alfa Romeo, Haas and Williams. And then Giovinazzi 16th, and Raikkonen, Grosjean, Magnussen, Latifi and Russell. And for the constructors, I think most importantly, the constructors, Mercedes, of course, are leading by a massive margin, over 200 points, 209 points, in fact. And I was informed in between the sessions that they can wrap up the constructors this weekend, and they can, they can wrap up the constructors, but they do need certain results for Red Bull. So, for example, if Max has a poor race and doesn't finish in the top 5 or retires from the Grand Prix, then I think Mercedes will win the constructors. With Albon being as far down as he is, it's looking likely. And to be honest, it's not really a big deal. You know, Mercedes winning the constructors. They've won every constructors title since 2014. 2014 feels like a fucking lifetime ago compared to the current climate. So, yeah, it's not a surprise. I mean, how many constructors titles is that now? 7 in a row? I mean, if you didn't think they were the greatest team in history, surely you do now. I mean, they are, without a doubt, the greatest Formula 1 team ever to be that successful continuously. You can see down the right, best result of the season. They've won 10 Grand Prix out of 12. That's just incredible. Absolutely incredible. Red Bull second. The only reason Red Bull are second is simply because of Max Verstappen. And that's the thing. You take away Max Verstappen's great performances, they would be in that fight with Racing Point, McLaren, and Renault, because they're only 100 points clear of Racing Point, despite Max being almost second in the Drivers' Championship. This shows you how poor Red Bull have been this season with their car, and how great Max has been. Then Racing Point third, McLaren fourth, Renault fifth. Racing Point 2 points clear of McLaren with 5 races to go. 4 after this weekend. And as I said earlier, that battle to get into Q3, it's going to be very, very important. And then, yeah, McLaren 2 points behind. And Renault 5th, 6 points behind. Even though Renault last weekend gave away some points, they've been, really since the Belgian Grand Prix, the best team out of those 3 in terms of picking up points. So, if Renault can get back to how they were at the Nürburgring or Sochi or Mugello this weekend, Renault could end up maybe not going from 5th up to 3rd, but they could go to 4th. Because they've been, as I said, since Spa, they've been probably the best team out of those 3. Ferrari is 6th on 93 points, only 16 points ahead of AlphaTauri. If Charles Leclerc wasn't as great as he's been this season, then I think, honestly, AlphaTauri would be in 6th in the Constructors, and I still think AlphaTauri deserve to be ahead of Ferrari in the Constructors. Ferrari have been horrible this season, and yeah, they're only there in 6th place because of Charles Leclerc. Without him, they'd be not only behind AlphaTauri, they'd be way behind AlphaTauri. And then Alfa Romeo 8th, Haas in 9th, and Williams in 10th. Hopefully Williams can get a points finish before the season finishes. It won't, though, surely be enough to take them ahead of Haas or Alfa Romeo, even though that would be incredible if it happened. But anyway, those are the drivers and constructor standings, and now we have 10 minutes to go until qualifying. So guys, right now in the live chat, let me know, in your opinion, What do you think will happen? Who's getting pole? Where will Max finish? Will he trouble the Mercedes? Let me know in the chat. And also, in the midfield, who do you see finishing where? As I said earlier, it's hard to predict, but give me, I guess, your best guess. That's the only thing you can do is guess. You can't really make a well-educated opinion based on running so far. So yeah, let me know in the chat, and I'll now read out the comments. So, let's have a look. Let's scroll up. Francisco saying, great to see the watch-alongs back, Chaz. Thank you very much. And he also says, I agree, 3 practice sessions is basically just to destroy some tyres and give it back to Pirelli. Well, it does help with Pirelli. They can just, I guess, justify their existence at times. Is it Ignited or Dignited? Saying, let's be honest, FP1 is useless. It is. It is. Practice 3 has way more use than practice 1, and it takes place at the similar time of morning at, European races and really all races. But practice 1 does. And yeah, practice 1 is definitely just a completely pointless session. You could replace that, honestly, with, say, F2 qualifying or something like that for people at the track to watch. That would be way more interesting than practice 1, where they're just, touring compared to what they would be doing. And not really, trying to do anything proper and find anything out like they were earlier on in practice. Astro Stevo says Mercedes will get pole. Surprise Bottas is even still in the running for the drivers. Well, that's what happens when you're in the best car and the best team of all time. As Bottas and Hamilton are walking down from the Mercedes motorhome to get in their cars soon. Let me have a quick look at the chat. The other comments if I can. Hamilton Ignited says Hamilton pole. Verstappen will split the Mercedes. Albon will be poor and be P8 or P9. Well, in practice, he was P9 and a second off of Max Verstappen. Not good enough, I'm afraid. I mean, I said early in practice, given the circumstances of that Max has the car suited and built towards him, and Max gets upgrades before Albon does, this is proven fact, I would, be willing to accept Alex Albon being half a second off the pace of Max Verstappen in qualifying. I'd be willing to accept that, because even if they're the equal car for both, Max is still quarter of a second, 0.3 at least quicker. So, half a second off in qualifying, that's acceptable for me, again, considering the circumstances. And at the Nürburgring and in Portugal, he was half a second off. And even though in Portugal his grid position wasn't that great, I don't think Red Bull's qualifying pace and pace in general around that track was actually that good, to be honest. But, Nürburgring, P5, half a second off Max. It was a good grid position, but he ended up blowing it by locking up his tyres too much and then crashing into an AlphaTauri. So, not exactly helped himself, even when he has got within half a second of his teammate, or has been half a second off his teammate. If he can get half a second and be half a second off Max in qualifying, he should be 4th or 5th. If he was half a second off Max in practice, he would have been P4 by about 0.2 of a second to the next car behind, which would have been Pierre Gasly. Which, again, shows that, at times, Albon has done well enough. But there's been too many times this season where Alex has not done well enough and has not helped himself. Practice, I know it's only practice, but it's a very important practice considering there's only one practice session, but he didn't help himself at all being that far behind. And he does look as though he's going to be really just stuck in a midfield fight tomorrow if he does qualify you know, where he was in practice. And I kind of feel sorry in a way for Albon because, I mean, he's not good enough. He's not good enough for this level. I think that's been clearly proven. I don't think anyone can really debate that. When I say this level, I mean, I don't necessarily mean Formula One. I mean, you know, driving a Red Bull. I just don't think he's good enough for that level yet. But the thing is, if you compare him to Pierre Gasly, I think the problem with Gasly when he was at Red Bull, like I said earlier, was I think the reason Gasly failed at Red Bull was because at times he didn't have equal parts as compared to Max Verstappen, and Max did get certain upgrades before Gasly. But Pierre, I don't think was ready to be at Red Bull. I don't think it was that Pierre wasn't good enough talent-wise. I think it was that Pierre just wasn't ready to be at Red Bull at that particular time in his life. He needed another year at Toro Rosso, as the last year or so where he's been at Toro Rosso / AlphaTauri has proven. With Alex Albon, it's not that he's not good enough yet. I just don't think he ever will be good enough to be a front-running Formula One driver and to be, you know, what Gasly's become. I think Albon can definitely be a good midfield driver, and there is nothing wrong with that. You know, there's plenty of drivers on the grid who are good midfield drivers. Perez, Ocon, Stroll, Hulkenberg when he races. You know, they're good drivers, but they're not top or even, you know, gonna really ever potentially be top drivers. And I think that's what Albon is. So I don't think it's a case of, you know, what Gasly went through just not being ready yet. I just don't think he ever will be good enough or ready to be in the Red Bull. And it's a shame because I really wanted Alex to succeed, because it's a great story in terms of his racing career, how he came back from almost oblivion for his racing career and got into Formula One. Because 2 or 3 years ago, if you asked anyone, would Alex Albon be in Formula One, they would probably say no. So, you know, great story in that, but I think just him getting put in the Red Bull has just showed that he isn't, you know, he's never going to be good enough to be a P4, P5, P6, consistently running in those positions type of driver. In the midfield, you know, P8, P9, P10, in a car that suits him better, he probably could be decent, but I just don't think that Red Bull he's ever gonna crack on and be what Red Bull want him to be, I'm afraid. But anyway, my long rambling is done. Let me read out one final comment if I can. Tonka saying, I disagree that these drivers have been promoted early. These drivers go through a lot of classes and drivers to get where they are from a very young age. Stress and pressure are in their blood by now. Pressure, you can't, obviously, in all racing there's pressure to finish in a certain position that your team expects you to. But the pressure from, you know, racing in F3 or F2 compared to F1 is not comparable at all. And even, you know, racing in a midfield car in F1 compared to racing in a Red Bull in the top 3 or 4 positions on the grid isn't comparable. So I don't think you can say, well, they've had pressure all their lives. Yes, they have, but they've not had this level of pressure and this level of scrutiny. It's completely different to anything they would have experienced before. I think in hindsight, Red Bull will look back and I think they already probably think it that they did promote Pierre Gasly too early. And, you know, in hindsight, they probably should have gone for a drive outside the academy for a year or two, let Gasly get even better, and then put Gasly in the car. Because I remember saying at the time when Gasly was announced for Red Bull in 2019, I remember saying at the time, even though, because he's part of the academy, it's the only choice they could really go for if they're going to stick to that method. You know, he just wasn't ready. He just wasn't ready at all. Anyway, qualifying is about to get underway at Imola and actually has got underway. So let me get all the graphics ready for the session. Let me just get rid of some of these things. There's so many tickers and all over the place. It might as well be a parade. Let me just get rid of some of these. So go. That's Q1. And there you go. That's the order. That's practice one's finishing order. Of course, I'll change it when we get some lap times on the board. By the way, that line, that is, of course, the line separating the drop zone in Q1 and safety. Hopefully you guys like that, because obviously it indicates better for you guys watching, if you're not watching the session, who is actually at risk. So, there you go. 17 minutes to go in Q1. And as well, because we haven't had many pictures, or much running on the track, there isn't many pictures around. So I will make sure, guys, to post pictures from Twitter, of the session as it continues through the afternoon. But qualifying is underway, and thank the Lord that we are back at Imola. I never thought we would. But we are. And it is a truly great occasion. And yes, it has took an extremely sad worldwide event for it to happen, but still, it's great to be back, as Kevin Magnussen is the first man to do a qualifying run in Q1. Just gone through the first sector and now exits the hairpin and now comes up to the to turn 8 and Aqua Minerale. And he's got a car ahead of him that moves out of the way, an AlphaTauri of, I think, Kvyat. Yeah, I think it's Kvyat. Moved out of his way as he comes up to the Variante Alta. He struggled here in the morning, went off a couple times. Didn't go off that time, went through it just fine. Now he's coming up to the final two corners, the two left-handers. Cars ahead of him to distract him, but he doesn't, thankfully, lose grip and lose any more lap time, as he comes up to the line and does a 1 minute 17.1, which is quite slow for a first run in Q1, considering I think he was quite a bit faster with his time in practice. Now we see Nicholas Latifi coming through, second Ravazza, now to the line. Of course, now the final chicane that used to be there is no longer there, and Latifi a 17.8 in second. That is, again, another very slow lap time compared to what I was expecting for them for their first run. Sebastian Vettel already 3/10 up on Kevin Magnussen after the first sector on his first run of qualifying in an F1 car at Imola. Of course, his hero, Michael Schumacher, used to be an absolute god around this place, but Sebastian, due to his confidence and his car, will be looking anything but a god. As Russell goes P1 on a 1 minute 16.7. That's a bit more like it for those drivers. Lance Stroll now does a 1 minute 16.2 and goes P1. Grosjean second on a 16.5. Grosjean was very good in practice, so I guess not surprised to see him there. Kvyat 1:15.4. 8/10 quicker than Stroll right out of the blocks as Vettel goes third. 2/10 slower than Stroll. But what a lap by Daniel Kvyat. Gasly comes to the line and goes second, 3/10 off. But that's a great lap by Daniel Kvyat. 15.4. That's only 7/10 slower than Lewis Hamilton's fastest practice time this morning, I think. As Perez comes to the line. Goes P4, 8/10 off. Leclerc goes third, about 4/10 off. Yeah, what a lap by Daniel. I mean, Max is now on a lap, and he's only 0.04 of a second up after the first two sectors. So, AlphaTauri flying after those first runs, as Max goes past a slow McLaren. And now rounds the final couple corners using all of the curb as he usually does. Comes to the line and goes second. Just proving again how great of a lap that was by Daniil. So, and now we've got Lewis Hamilton on a lap. Got a car ahead of him that pulls out the way of, I think, an Alfa Romeo. He's 800ths down on Kvyat in the first sector. And now he comes through. Aqua Minerale. Bottas, amazing first sector. 2/10 up on Kvyat already in the first sector alone. And a lot quicker than Lewis Hamilton. I think 3/10 quicker than Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton saying on the radio, hit the curb just now. Check it's okay. I'm guessing he hit. He's saying right front. Can't see anything at the moment that's wrong. But I'm guessing he thinks he hit a curb too hard. He comes into the final two Ravazzas. Critical to get these two corners right. Uses all of the track on the exit. Great run out for Lewis Hamilton, who goes P1 by 1/4 of a second. But I think Valtteri Bottas is about to go a lot quicker than that, as now he comes to the line. And no, Bottas has had a problem, or he's backed off for some reason, because he's now gone 16th. Done a 19-0 instead. There's some issue for Valtteri Bottas. Norris goes 5th in the McLaren. Bit more like it for McLaren. Alex Albon rounds the final corner. What can Albon do? His teammate is on a 15-4 at the moment. Alex Albon does a 16-7. Oh, dearie me. Russell goes 8th in the Williams. Stroll now 8th. By the way, I'll update the order once all 20 drivers have completed their first proper run. So I need to wait for Valtteri Bottas to do a proper run, and for Sainz and Ricciardo to do their first proper lap time as well. Charles Leclerc, I think, was up on Lewis Hamilton's middle sector time. So this is a great run from Charles Leclerc. Raikkonen out to 10th. And Gasly now goes 2nd, only 0.5 off Lewis Hamilton. Charles Leclerc rounds the final corner, and he will come. And Sainz has had a problem in the middle sector. Leclerc comes to the line and goes P1 by 0.02 of a second. I know it's only Q1, but Ferrari fans across Italy and across the world, surely they are going to be taking pictures of that. Ferrari in P1 is going to be brief, but, you know, it's a moment to be savoured. The Sainz is on the radio. Obviously can't hear it. I like, though, that they have brought that new graphic out that you can actually see sometimes what they're saying. Good for me when I'm doing a watch-along. I can actually read out certain team radio messages. And now Max Verstappen goes P1 by about just under 1/10 of a second. Talking of AlphaTauri, let me get a picture of them on the screen. Fantastic. First run for both of them. They're both, I think, both cars in the top 5 at the moment. That's a proper good job. We just adjust quickly. So, there you can see the AlphaTauri. I think that's Gasly, it is, because he's got the Ayrton Senna tribute helmet. A very great tribute, by the way, from the Gazman. As Sainz is about 0.5 second up on Raikkonen, who is the last driver before the elimination zone at the moment. So Sainz is on course to go P7, P8-ish, as Lewis Hamilton does a 1:14.5 and goes 0.5 second quicker than Max Verstappen. Great lap. Latifi goes 14th. Sainz goes 8th. Yeah, that's about where I thought he would go. Bottas goes 2nd. Alex Albon is now down in 19th place. He is 0.4 up on Giovinazzi, though. But, come on, Alex. Just give it one proper go in these final two corners. Don't leave an inch to be spared. He comes into the Ravazzas. Hits the apex nicely. And to the second one as well. Uses all the tracks, so that looked very good. Comes to the line, and what is it? P8. A 1:15.5. That's more like it. That is a lot more like it. As now we're just waiting. And Valtteri Bottas has had his lap time deleted. So he stays in 19th place. But we have about 7.5 minutes to go until the end of qualifying 1. Flying along already it is. Let me do some of the order. So it's Lewis Hamilton, P1, from Verstappen 2nd, Leclerc 3rd, Gasly 4th, and then Norris up in 5th. That's a lot more likely for McLaren. That's a lot more what they need at the moment. As they're now showing on the TV broadcast, track limits at turn 9. Just showing, what will happen if they go over. I don't think anyone wants to go over those sawtooth curbs, though, so... Well, let's see, actually. Bottas turns in, and... That's not worthy of a lap time deletion. I'm not even sure if he had all 4 wheels over the white line. Didn't look it to me. But anyway... Norris 5th, Kvyat 6th, Perez 7th, and then Sainz in 8th. Daniel Ricciardo currently on a lap. Albon also time deleted, so Albon is in the drop zone. So Albon 18th, Bottas 19th. Imagine if that was to happen, if they were to stay there because of lap time deletions. That'd be mental. So Sainz in 8th. Ricciardo comes to the first Ravazza. Now into the second Ravazza. And he comes to the line. And where does he go? P11. That's not great. But yeah, that's not a great lap from Daniel. I'm guessing he's had problems because he's been out on track, I think, quite a while without doing a time. Again. That's not a lap time deletion. If you look at the slow-mo here, that's extremely harsh. When they've allowed a bit more than that at other tracks, like, for example, the Grand Prix last weekend, that's very harsh, in my view. So, Ricciardo P11, just behind Sebastian Vettel P10 at the moment. And then you got Stroll in 12th. Racing Point do not look quick. I know Perez is up in 7th, but he's got, Sainz, Ocon, Vettel, Ricciardo, all within 2/10 of him. And then Stroll's down in 12th and looking a bit at risk. So, yeah, not great. The Racing Point so far, especially compared to McLaren, who are ahead of them, it looks on pace. 14th, behind Russell, is Romain Grosjean, and then it's Giovinazzi in 15th. And in the drop zone, below that line, you can see on the left of the screen, is Latifi, and then Magnussen in 17th, and then Raikkonen 18th, with Albon 19th, and Valtteri Bottas at the moment dead last, but only because of lap time deletions. So there you go. That is the order with 4 minutes to go in Q1. By the way, hello to Frederick in the chat. Great to see you. Great to see a Discord regular in the chat. I'll try and see if I can find a new picture to put on screen. Not at the moment. I will say, though, my throat is burning quite a lot because it is very, very sore. So, guys, just give me 30 seconds and I'll be back. Right, so I'm back. Yeah, very, very sore, as you guys know all well from all the other streams that I've done in the past. But the car's back out on track. Lance Stroll has just gone up to 8th. Kevin Magnussen goes P11, so the track is gripping up a lot now. We have only 3 minutes to go. Grosjean now goes P11. Russell goes 13th. That's not great compared to the Haas's. He's going to be at risk there. Raikkonen goes 13th. Now you got Ricciardo in the drop zone. Ricciardo has actually set the exact same lap time as Sebastian Vettel. And it looks as though at the moment Vettel will get an improved lap here. Let's see. Comes to the line. And P7. That's a very good lap. Not great, but it's good. Bottas goes second. Hopefully he didn't extend track limits this time. Latifi, after 2 sectors, is slightly away from getting into the next part of qualifying. Albon, after the first sector, is actually a 10th down on Raikkonen as Latifi locks his inside front into Ravazza 1. That's going to cost him a lot of time as he runs to the line and doesn't. He does improve to 17th, but he could have done better without that lockup. Probably could have got into the next part briefly of qualifying. Albon, only a 10th and a half up on Kimi Raikkonen. Can he get into Q2? I know that sounds ridiculous, but this guy has no confidence at the moment in a Red Bull car that's not been good this season. Hamilton improves yet again to a 14-2, 4 tenths clear of Bottas, 8 tenths clear of Verstappen. And Albon goes P7 on a 15-4. Now, if he does keep that lap time, that is, in terms of his difference to Max Verstappen pace-wise, is a lot more like it. Good on him. Right, so now let me, with a minute or so to go, as Antonio Giovinazzi is giving the Cubs hell for leather on his run. He's currently last, but he is up on his... well, he's not up in the middle sector. I was going to say he had a personal best in the first sector. Not anymore, though. Looks as though with this lap, he's probably going to stay in last place. Yeah, it's now Hamilton from Bottas. Verstappen third, and then Leclerc. As Giovinazzi rounds the final corner, comes up to the line. Where will it be? 20th. And I think he is done for qualifying. Hope Daniel Ricciardo's out on track because he's 19th. Got to get a run in, obviously. A Stroll doesn't improve his time and stays in P11. Will that be enough? So, oh, and Magnussen making a mistake there. I think making a mistake at the final corner as Grosjean stays 14th. Russell comes to the line and goes P11. Great run. Raikkonen goes 11th. So both Haas's are out of Q1. Carlos Sainz comes to the line. P10. Where is Daniel Ricciardo? Ocon is on a lap. He's 15th, Ocon. And someone just went out the drop zone. I didn't see who it was, so. Oh, Raikkonen, 17th. He had his lap time deleted. The Grosjean is through for the moment. Ocon goes P7. Here comes Daniel Ricciardo to the line. And P11, so he is through to the next part of qualifying. So Q1 is over and done with. And here is the final finishing order of qualifying 1. So, Valtteri Bottas finished up in P1 at the very end there. 8 thousandths of a second. Separating the two Mercedes. Too close to call. Who's going to win that later on for pole. And then Verstappen third, Leclerc fourth, Gasly fifth, Norris in sixth. Esteban Ocon P7, Albon 8th. And again, from Albon, that was a lot better pace-wise than it was before. Hopefully he can keep that up into Q2 in terms of how far off he is lap time-wise. Max Verstappen, only 3 tenths on that lap. Perez 9th. And Kvyat 10th. AlphaTauri looking very quick so far. Ricciardo 11th. Renault not looking as quick so far in qualifying. Sainz 12th. And then Sebastian Vettel 13th. And as I said earlier, I don't really see Vettel getting into the top 10. Going to have to produce one of the best drives of the season. Probably his best drive to get through. Russell 14th. Mr. Saturday does it again. And then just getting through, Lance Stroll. Racing Point not as quick as I thought they would be. And then knocked out of Q1, Romain Grosjean in P16. Then Magnussen 17th, Raikkonen 18th, Latifi in 19th place, and then Antonio Giovinazzi last of all, which is quite sad because he looked pretty good in practice. But there you go. Q1 over and done with. And Q2 should be getting underway in just, a minute or two. So as they all try and get ready, let me get the next load of times and all of that ready. So, obviously, do next. There you go. And also, let me put a line just below P10. So, I can clearly indicate, who or where, where the drop zone is. So, there you go. And I'll just adjust the size at it so it fits on the screen. There you go. So, in Q2, of course, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th out of the, the 5 slowest runners, basically, out of the next 15 cars will be knocked out of Q2, and then the top 10 will go through to the shootout that is Q3. P11, P12, P13, P14, and P15 in Q1 were Ricciardo, Sainz, Vettel, Russell, Stroll. Will it remain the same? Probably not. But in Q1, knocked out Grosjean, Magnussen, Raikkonen, Latifi, Giovinazzi. There you go. And let me just quickly look at the chat. Hopefully, Astro Stevo says, hopefully Red Bull won't stuff Albon around and sacrifice him for Max again. Let's just see what happens, to be honest. Crystal Racing saying Haas are quick, and then lol, he cursed Haas. Haas were looking quick for a time there, and they surprised me. They were actually quicker than Alfa Romeo. I didn't think that would be the case. I thought Alfa Romeo would be, more likely to get a car into Q2, but it's not really a surprise anymore that Russell got into Q2 because he's so good over a single lap, and also very good over a race as well. I think people honestly overlook how good he is at races. The problem is, in that car, it can't look after its tyres. So he's always struggling to keep up with, cars that have a lot more grip. The reason the Williams is able to compete with the Alfa Romeo and Haas is because it has a lot more power, not because it is downforce-wise that good. So, let me try and get another picture on screen of a certain curb hopping and soon to be 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton. See there briefly on the screen, and if I do that, just adjust it, you can see there the sparks. That's him, obviously on the entry. That's him clipping the inside yellow sausage curb not really a proper sausage curb, but you know what I mean. You can see it here, just below Hamilton's car. You can see the yellow there for the next part of the chicane. That's why, of course, he's bounced up a bit. There you go. Q2 underway in a moment. Charles Leclerc is going to come out on medium compound tyres. That is extremely ambitious. As Q2's got underway, I haven't got the timer ready though, so give me 40 seconds and the timer will be in place. I gotta say, he was quick. He was quick in Q1, but that's still a bit ambitious. Not ambitious for the two Mercedes who come out on mediums. They have the best car of all time, so I mean, they could try and qualify on the hard compound and then probably get through, so it doesn't really matter what they do. But yeah, Leclerc, bit of a risk. It was a risk in Portimao and it paid off because Leclerc was so quick, but it might not pay off here. Hopefully it does, though, for Leclerc's sake. But there you go. 14 minutes to go in Q2. Going to be very, very close, I think, this next 14 minutes. I can't predict at all who's going to be in the next part of qualifying. Also, Max Verstappen on mediums and Sebastian Vettel. Now, I mentioned this in my Portuguese Grand Prix review, which you can go and check out in the description after this stream finishes. They fucked him over big time, did Ferrari on Vettel. They fucked him over big time in Portugal because they tried to qualify him on mediums. He wasn't quick enough, but they kept him on mediums. If he isn't good enough to get through, hopefully this time they have the common sense to put him on soft tyres to try and improve his grid position, because there's no point him starting on mediums if he's P15, as he is the first one to start a run. Goes through the first sector. And comes Acqua Minerale. Really hits the inside curb hard. Really threw the car at the apex. Now comes up to the middle sector point. Can't really compare him with anyone else because no one else has really set a lap time so far as he passes a slow Esteban Ocon getting out of the way. Kvyat, though, was not as quick as Sebastian in the first sector, I don't think. Or maybe he was. I think it's because someone else has set a purple first sector. Everyone at the moment on a lap except for Norris, Perez, Ricciardo, Sainz, Stroll and Ocon. Ocon on an out lap. And then Russell, Vettel, Kvyat, Albon, Gasly, Leclerc, Verstappen, Bottas, Hamilton. Currently on a lap. As Norris comes out for an out lap as Sebastian Vettel does a 16.3 on medium tyres. That's not good enough. That is not going to get him anywhere near Q3. Kvyat does a 15.2 on soft tyres. Hardly a surprise he's on soft tyres. Gasly, though, a 15 flat. That's a very, very quick time. What can Charles Leclerc do compared to the AlphaTauris? That will indicate whether this is a risk. Too much of a risk, and I think it is. 1:15.6. And even, yeah, Russell goes quicker than Leclerc by a tenth. I think they've got to get soft tyres on that Ferrari. That's not going to work. As Hamilton goes 4 tenths quicker on a harder compound of tyre. Just shows you how quick that car is. Bottas goes a tenth quicker, though. Over than a tenth, half a tenth quicker. Those Mercedes are properly quick, but how quick is Max Verstappen? As Albon goes up to P5, Max pits. Must have had an issue on his run then. But it's Bottas P1, Hamilton P2 on medium tyres, Gasly 3rd and Kvyat 4th on soft tyres, Albon 5th on soft tyres, Russell 6th on soft tyres, Leclerc and Vettel 7th and 8th on mediums as Ocon comes to the line. Where will he go? P4, good lap. 15.2, that should be maybe not good enough straight away to get into Q3, but very good first run. He now needs to get out of the way for the McLaren of Lando Norris. So, very interesting, to be honest. Q2 so far. And yeah, Ferrari, they have got to put soft tyres on definitely Vettel's car. Maybe Leclerc might be able to sneak in with another run on mediums, but honestly, I would not take the risk. They're not quick enough. They've got to go for the soft compound tyre. Yes, you'll have pain tomorrow, but at least around this track, even though they are slow in a straight line, it's harder to overtake here than it is at most places. So it won't be as bad here as it would be at the Nürburgring. As Norris comes to the final 2 corners. This needs to be for Norris around Ocon, Kvyat, Albon. Ricciardo, very good lap so far, looking like he's going to go P3. Norris goes P4 on a 15.0. Good run. Orlando. Here comes Daniel Ricciardo. And someone has gone, or has kicked up a lot of gravel. Don't know who it was. Daniel Ricciardo goes P4 as Vettel does another lap. Improves by half a second, but does not get into the top 10 as Kvyat improves for 6th. Sainz goes 8th. Albon was on mediums, it says, for 9th place, which is interesting. Lance Stroll goes P10. And the next man on track to complete his run, Perez. Verstappen is in the pits, so he will go down to P15 in a moment. Here comes Sergio Perez down to Ravazza 1. And looks good. I think they're probably going to throw a red flag for gravel on the track like they normally do as Perez goes up to 6th. So Albon is now in the drop zone. Just below Leclerc. Yeah, Ferrari have got to go with soft tyres for Leclerc. As Albon, I think, has backed off because he was on a lap. So, let's see a replay. So it comes up to Variante Alta chicane towards the end of the lap. And very weird. No obvious mistake there. He didn't hit the inside, the first part of the chicane. He didn't hit the curb that hard, but the rear end just said no. Just said, fuck no, I'm not doing that. And spun him round. I think that is a clear indication of the Red Bull and why it's not a good car this season. Because it is not stable. Because that is a clear illustration of a car that does not have a stable rear end, and that's been its biggest criticism. So, yeah, that I don't really think that was Albon's fault. That was the car just having a moment. Anyway, with 7.5 minutes to go in Q2, it is Bottas P1 from Hamilton P2, Gasly 3rd, and then Ricciardo in 4th. Lando Norris is 5th for McLaren. 6th is Sergio Perez. And then Daniel Kvyat is in P7. AlphaTauri look as though they do have probably the best car in the midfield at the moment. They really are carrying the pace from practice through. I didn't think they would, but it's great. Great performance so far. And it's really going to upset one of those Racing Point or McLarens, I think. Maybe even a Red Bull. As, the person kicking up the gravel was Sebastian Vettel, so he could have gone a bit quicker. Not much, probably a 10.5, 2 tenths at most. Saying that, though, he's half a second off Leclerc, but if he was to gain that time back, then he would still be 1/4 of a second off. So, yeah, he's still not good enough to get through. Ferrari have got to put the soft tyres on. I know they don't want to, but they've got to do it. They can't afford to be stuck back in 12th, 13th and getting held up. Because around the Imola, if you go back and watch old races from this, Grand Prix venue, if you're stuck in traffic, you can lose an absolute mountain of time. I know DRS wasn't around then, which is a good thing, obviously. But, yeah, if you're in traffic at Imola and you can't find a way past, your race will be completely destroyed without a shadow of a doubt. So you cannot afford to be in traffic, and Ferrari will this time, thankfully, send Sebastian Vettel out on soft tyres. Can he get through, or will he fall yet again to another Spinella moment? Hopefully not. So in the drop zone with 5 minutes to go, Alex Albon, Lance Stroll, George Russell 13th at the moment. Very good position for him. Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen. Verstappen, though, has not done a lap time so far in Q2. There you go. Who will get through to the next part of qualifying? So, let me just quickly, if I can, find another picture. I can't at the moment. Actually, I can. I'll put a picture on screen of Albon spinning in the Red Bull. As Gasly's now on an out lap. Kvyat is. Ocon is on a lap. And now they're showing him. Leclerc's on an out lap, and so is Sebastian Vettel. So both Ferraris, I think, are on soft tyres. Ocon has not done a personal best first sector. Let me just adjust this. As he does a personal best middle sector, though. So looking good here for Ocon. Trying to adjust this picture a bit and get it on screen properly. And now he comes through the final two Ravazzas. And there you go. You can see Albon spin at the exit of the very anti-outer chicane. Ocon does he improve his time? No, he doesn't. 0.02 of a second slower, I think, on that lap. So he will probably have to go again on that. Because he is not safe. Because Leclerc's just behind. So is Sainz and Albon and Vettel. And he's got Verstappen there. So Ocon is going to have to go again. He's in trouble there. He's in big trouble. So, Kvyat is now on a lap. He's halfway through it. He's only 0.2 down on Bottas after 2 sectors. Gasly is half a tenth up on Bottas through the middle sector. As he now, Kvyat, rounds the final corner. Can he improve his time good enough to get absolutely into Q3? Oh, God, he does. P5 on a 15-0. AlphaTauri are flying. And Gasly stays third, but is only just under a tenth off of P1. Sebastian Vettel comes to the line. Only P12 on soft tyres. I think that just illustrates that he just isn't quick enough in that car at the moment to be getting into a top 10 in qualifying. Leclerc now down to the final 2 corners with Verstappen and Albon below him. If he doesn't get this lap right, Leclerc, he's probably going to get knocked out with his teammate. Leclerc comes to the line. P4, that is a clutch lap. A 15-0. I will say though, Gasly, how on earth is he that quick? Must have had a very good breakfast meal this morning. As now on an out lap, Bottas, Hamilton, Ricciardo, Norris, Perez, Sainz, Albon, Stroll, Russell, and Verstappen. The only car in the pits, Ocon, is P9 at the moment, and I think Ocon's going to get knocked out because I just don't see him getting through. Max is on mediums for his final run. Hopefully Red Bull have put soft tyres on Albon's car because there's no point taking that risk. So, here comes Max Verstappen to start his final run in qualifying. Can he put in a lap? And I know, by the way, I know that Gasly, of course, is on the soft and Mercedes are on the medium, but still, to be that close to a Mercedes and an AlphaTauri is an incredible job, despite the tyre difference. Let's see what Max can do. Same tyre as the Mercedes. Can he get in amongst them? The Red Bull sparking away and Max throwing the car every corner like he hates it. You know, all the corners. As he now exits the hairpin. Uses all of the track on exit. Now comes to Aqua Minerale. Car looks not on rails, but planted. And the car sparking away as usual. Looks a great lap, and it is, lap time wise, it's not that great at the moment. Carlos Sainz goes up to 7th on a 15-0. It is so close to get into the top 10. From Leclerc to Ocon, or sorry, from Leclerc to Perez, P4 to P9, it's 1/10 of a second. This is going to be very close, as someone went through the gravel there. Don't know who it was. As Max goes P4 on the mediums. That's a good lap. Very important for the race tomorrow. Here comes Alex Albon on the soft tyres. Can he get through? Yes, he does. 4th place on a 14.7. That is more like it. Great to see from Albon. Ricciardo goes 5th. Norris now at risk of getting knocked out. Sebastian Vettel comes to line. Can he get into the top 10? No, 13th. That's the best he can do, and it's probably going to get worse. Oh, when will it end? When is the next time he will get into the top 10? So, Perez is out in P11. That's quite a surprise, to be honest. Ocon is out in 12th. 13th is Vettel. 14th, Russell. 15th is Stroll. Is Stroll on a lap or is he not? I don't think so. I don't think Lance Stroll is on a lap. So both racing points. Is this Stroll on a lap? No. No, he's going slowly. He's not on a lap. Or is he on a lap? I don't know. No, he's not on a lap. Surely not. I'm going to see a replay now. As Q2, by the way, is over. Variante Alta, and he went wide on the exit, but that definitely wasn't enough to cost him. And this is what cost him. Going through the gravel at the final corner, blowing probably half a second at most. 15th for Lance Stroll and P11 for Sergio Perez. That is very poor for Racing Point in their fight for 3rd in the Constructors. But let me just finish up the order. So, in Q2, Bottas P1 from Hamilton P2, Gasly P3 in the AlphaTauri. If he was to maintain that, then that would be one of the drives of the season to go with his other drive of the season. Albon 4th, 0.2 quicker than Max. Yes, Max is on mediums, but that lap time wise, that is still good for Albon. He needs to keep that up. He really does. And then 5th, Daniel Ricciardo, looking good, is Big Dick Danny Rick, as I said earlier. Leclerc P7. Leclerc, he's doing the best he can, but that car really is not up there with the Red Bull, AlphaTauri, and Renault, by the looks of it, around this track. Kvyat 8th. Great job by him. That might actually be enough to, and if he has a good race performance, he might be able to convince AlphaTauri that he deserves to stay. But knocked out in Q2, Sergio Perez P11. That's very disappointing for Racing Point. Disappointing for Ocon. Was looking good all weekend, but just didn't get that final run right. And that is what cost him. Vettel 13th. 14th, Russell. By the way, I've got to say, Russell, great job. Only 0.3 of a second from getting into the top 10. And only half a tenth behind Vettel and a tenth behind Ocon in the works Renault. Can't commend the guy enough for how good of a driver he is. Get that man in a fucking good car, please. So Russell 14th and Lance Stroll in 15th. There is Q2. Of course, next up is the shootout, Q3. And it looks as though Valtteri Bottas, I'm hesitating to say his favourite because we said this for the Portuguese Grand Prix and he lost pole. So, we'll see. We'll see. But he's looking good. That's all I'll say. Right. Let's get everything ready. So, Q3 is next, obviously. And Q3, 12 minutes long. There are only 2 runs able to get in for the session. And competing in Q3, the 2 Mercedes are Bottas and Hamilton, Gasly in the AlphaTauri, and Kvyat in the AlphaTauri. So 2 AlphaTauris. at the home Grand Prix. Leclerc 7th in the Ferrari, also at his home Grand Prix. Not his, but, the team's. 2 Red Bulls, Albon and Verstappen. As I think they're delaying the session briefly to clear gravel away from the final corner. And then the 2 McLarens of Sainz and Norris plus Ricciardo in the Renault. The midfield battle and the pole position battle is going to be very good. I cannot wait to see what happens. Right. Let me quickly try and get a new picture. So I'll get a picture here of Super Max Verstappen, who hasn't been quite super so far. He's been good, but he's not been quite super. As Russell 13th. How come he's 13th? Has someone had their lap time deleted? Let me have a quick look. So I can get the order correct. So yeah, Vettel 14th. So not only has he done well to be that close to getting in, he's out-qualified a works Ferrari at Imola in a awful shit car. Superb from Russell. What was I trying to do? I'm trying to get a picture of Max. Right. So let me throw this up on screen if I can. Then right before the final runs, I'll probably post a picture of the Mercedes, because obviously they're the ones going to be going for pole position most likely. Max Verstappen just doesn't look like he has the pace. Not because he's not good enough, but because the Red Bull car isn't good enough. We know this. Yeah, Q3 underway in just a moment. Guys, let me know in the chat who's getting pole position. Who is getting pole position in your opinion? Bottas or Hamilton? Or are you going to go for a wild one and say Max Verstappen? I'm definitely not. I'm going to go Lewis Hamilton for pole position. I don't see Valtteri Bottas having enough in the final run. Maybe he'll do a Nürburgring and produce an amazing lap and blow Hamilton out of the water. But he is competing against the GOAT. This isn't just any old driver he's competing against. As Carlos Sainz is coming out on the soft compound. And the light should go green in a moment for Q3 getting underway. As now they're going to bring Lewis Hamilton out. And Valtteri Bottas, both, of course, on the soft compound tyres. Not like Portimao, where it looked like mediums might be the best tyre to run on, as the session is underway now. Yeah, not like Portimao, where, running on mediums, you might actually get more lap time because the tyre was hanging on better. Around Imola, it looks as though the soft tyre is absolutely the tyre to be on for the best lap time. But it was very important for Max and the 2 Mercedes to qualify on the mediums, because tomorrow, if they do qualify those 3 in the front 3 positions, that's really going to give them a massive advantage over everyone else, as typical pit lane shenanigans of Max trying to duck out the way of Ricciardo, that shouldn't result in a penalty. Happens basically every weekend, that. And again, I have failed to fucking sync up in time on the timer. So I'll do it in about 45 seconds time, as Carlos Sainz will be the first man to start his first run of qualifying 3. Frederick saying Lewis will get pole. Tonka saying Bottas. Astro Stevo saying Lewis. B Bridge saying Lewis. Rooksfoot saying Lewis. Brabham Oz saying Lewis. I hope it is Bottas, by the way. I do hope. Not because I don't like Lewis Hamilton. Not at all. It's just because I want to see a race tomorrow and I want to see, you know, the two Mercedes racing like we did last weekend. As talking of Lewis Hamilton, he has started his first run of Q3. Let's see if we can pull out a magical lap straight away. As there you go, 10 minutes to go in Q3. Lewis Hamilton comes through Tamburello chicane, now into the Villeneuve chicane. Car, as expected, on absolute fucking rails as he comes into the hairpin. Very quick first sector. Very quick first sector. 23.5. Already 2 tenths up on Gasly. After just 23 seconds. As he now comes through Akmanurale. Now comes up to the mid-sector point. And to the Variante... I forgot the fucking name of the chicane again. We haven't raced her in so long. Very good middle sector. Very good lap so far. As Carlos Sainz sets the first time. Of course, that's why he's P1. Kvyat, though, goes quicker. AlphaTauri again. Oh, and Hamilton kicks up some gravel on the exit. That's going to cost him not much. Probably a tenth. Maybe a tenth or two. There's 13.7, though. That's a very quick time. But that would have cost him to Bottas. Gasly goes second on a 14.6. Ricciardo goes P4 on a 15.4. That is quite a poor lap time in comparison. As Bottas goes second by about 0.03 of a second. And Max goes third. 7 tenths exactly off of pole position. Alex Albon comes to the line. He's got to go P4 with this. Goes P5. Well, then again, he's only 2 tenths, or not even that. He's about a tenth and a half off his teammate, so that's pretty good on lap time. Norris is 6th for McLaren, and the last man to come to the line is Charles Leclerc, who goes 6th. So, with 8 minutes to go until the end of qualifying, it is Lewis Hamilton on provisional pole position by 0.03 of a second, and he can go faster. That final corner, he gave away probably a tenth of a second, so he could probably get into the mid 1 minute 13s. Then Bottas second, he's still, I'm sure, got time in his pocket. Verstappen third. Gasly, what a drive he is putting in P4. Albon 5th. I've got to say, Albon so far in qualifying is doing well. I think we've got to give him credit. He's doing well. Only a tenth and a half of his teammate. Oh no, his lap time's been deleted. Oh dear, scrap that. We'll see what he does later, but if he can be a couple tenths off Max at the end of qualifying, then that's a good drive from Alex Albon. So, it is Gasly 4th, but it is now Leclerc 5th. Lando Norris is 6th in the McLaren. That is a very good performance by him in a McLaren car that seems to be struggling a bit for qualifying pace. Daniel Kvyat 7th, just proving that the AlphaTauri car around Imola is really flying along. P8 is Daniel Ricciardo. Renault also not looking that quick. Ricciardo's run there, you know, 6 tenths, 8 tenths of a second off of Gasly. Surely there's more time to be had. And again, another lap time deletion at, was it turn 9? When he barely went off the track. I'm sorry, that's not... When we're talking about, you know, track limit violations, that's not what we're talking about. If anyone's watching the broadcast, you'll see what I mean. That is, for me, that's just about acceptable. Because when you go to the exit curve of a corner, you're not going to be perfectly where you should be every time, and you have to be given slight leeway. But that, I'm sorry, that's not worthy of a lap time deletion. So Albon, well, I think Albon does then have the pace to get P4, P5. He just needs to forget about that lap. Forget that it's been deleted. Just act like it hasn't. and then use that to improve even more the final run in Q3. But yeah, the top 10 so far: Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen, Gasly, Leclerc, Norris, Kvyat, Ricciardo, Sainz and Albon, with 5 minutes to go until the end of qualifying. And because of that, let's get a picture up of Mercedes, because they are the ones to watch in this fight. Let me have a quick look. See if I can find a good picture. Here, I've got one. A very nice picture of Lewis Hamilton. 4.5 minutes left as we're now seeing Binotto, the king clown of the circus, I guess you would call him. Anyway, let's get this picture quickly up. Let me just shrink it down because obviously it's way too big. So there you go. There is a picture of your man who is on pole position currently. Will it finish that way? Only 0.03 of a second separating the two Mercedes. And I said this before. Hamilton is great, but you cannot deny that Valtteri Bottas in qualifying is a very, very, very good driver. In the race, he's nowhere near as good. But in qualifying, Valtteri is a force to be reckoned with. There's plenty of times this season he has pushed Lewis to, his absolute best. So let's not deny Valtteri's ability to get pole here. He can definitely do it. And even if he doesn't, he'll be pushing Lewis hard for pole position. Anyway, before we get into those final runs, my throat needs a quick soothing drink. So let me just quickly have a drink, and then I'll get into the final 3 minutes of qualifying. As now I'm back. We've now got cars on track. Every car left in Q3 on track, actually, except for Max Verstappen, with 2.5 minutes to go. As Alex Albon is halfway through the lap, and Max is only just coming out of the pit lane. So Max has got to make sure he doesn't hold up anyone, but also is quick enough to get round his outlap because he ain't got much time. As Lewis Hamilton coming into the middle sector now on his outlap. They're just showing on the screen. Most pole positions at Imola, Ayrton Senna on 8. And Michael Schumacher on 5. And like I was saying earlier, this is a real driver's circuit. It shows the men from the boys. If you want to show how good of a driver you are, this is one of those tracks where you do so. So we're going to see here exactly what the 10 drivers are made of and who can win their respective battles, either teammate battles, midfield battles, pole position battle. We'll see who comes out on top. As Norris, Kvyat, Ricciardo, Sainz and Gasly have started their final run. On and out, and so has Albon. On and out lap. Still Bottas, Verstappen and Leclerc, as Lewis has started his final run. And Valtteri has now as well. Can Valtteri reproduce some of his hero's magic, his hero being Mika Häkkinen back in the day? Can he do what Häkkinen used to do and produce a blistering final run for pole position? You go back to the 2000 San Marino Grand Prix at Imola. Häkkinen produced probably his greatest pole position when being pushed to the edge by Michael Schumacher. And Bottas so far, a purple first sector, so maybe he is replicating his hero's form. As Ricciardo goes up to 4th on a 14.5, that's a proper lap. Alex Albon 5th See what Max does in comparison, but that's decent enough at the moment. Bottas has not done a personal best in the middle sector, but is still a 10th or so up. Gasly goes 4th on a 14.5. Lewis Hamilton comes to the line, does improve to a 13.7. 13.706. Valtteri comes to the line, goes on to pole position by just under a 10th of a second. And I was just saying a minute ago, he needed to replicate his hero Mika Häkkinen's form from back in the day in producing a blistering final run. And he absolutely has. As Max Verstappen comes to the line, improves his time for 14.1, but stays in P3. Great final run by Bottas, and we may criticise him sometimes, rightfully so, for being a bit passive at times, and in the races not having great pace, but you cannot deny that in qualifying he is one of the best out there. Beat Lewis Hamilton to pole position 3 weeks ago at the Nürburgring by a quarter of a second, and then by a 10th of a second at Imola. You cannot deny his ability over a single lap. It is phenomenal. And well done to Valtteri Bottas. So qualifying is over. And now let me just do the final order before we come to the chat to see what you guys have to say. So Bottas on pole position, Lewis Hamilton second, Max Verstappen third, and then fourth, Pierre Gasly. I think definitely driver of the day has to go for qualifying to Pierre Gasly. Fourth place in an AlphaTauri, ahead of a Works Renault, a Red Bull, a Ferrari, and a couple of McLarens. Phenomenal. Ricciardo fifth, very good performance again. Albon sixth. I want to see the lap time difference, though, because that's what matters more to me. Not necessarily the position, but the lap time difference between Max and Albon. Albon sixth. Leclerc seventh. I think Leclerc's in trouble tomorrow because he's going to be on the soft tyre, which he had to go on to get into the top 10. And he's not qualified at the front of that midfield pack. I think Ferrari are in for a very tough Grand Prix tomorrow. Kvyat 8th. Good drive by him, potentially to save his Formula 1 career. Norris 9th and 10th, Carlos Sainz to complete the top 10. And then knocked out in Q2 was Perez, Ocon, Russell, Vettel, Stroll. Then knocked out in Q1, Grosjean, Magnussen, Raikkonen, Latifi and Giovinazzi. But on pole position, let me get a picture of him, is the Finn Valtteri Bottas. Let me get a picture of him. Great lap. Didn't put a foot wrong. Got absolutely everything out of the car. And did exactly what was asked of him if he was going to get pole position. Let me just bring the picture a bit. So there you go. There's your pole position, man. Valtteri Bottas. Again, great job. And qualifying is over. So there you go. Qualifying over. Pretty good qualifying session. Not thrilling. We've had definitely better qualifying sessions in 2020. But, yeah. Bottas on pole from Hamilton second. Gasly fourth. Ricciardo fifth. Albon 6th with Leclerc, Kvyat, Norris, Sainz, and then 2 racing points outside the top 10 with a Ferrari. That's a pretty good grid for tomorrow. I'm excited for tomorrow. I'm definitely excited for tomorrow. Because I think the 2 racing points and Vettel are definitely going to be a bit quicker and should be able on harder compound tyres to get in amongst McLarens and Leclerc and Albon if he's struggling and cars like that. So, we've got a good starting grid for the Grand Prix tomorrow. But, let me just come to you guys in the chat to see what you guys have to say. So, Crystal Racing saying full gas for Gasly. Crystal Racing, Valtteri Häkkinen. Albon 4/10 off Max. Well, I said half a second. Half a second at most is acceptable. So, good job, I'd have to say. Yeah, I know people will say, oh, but you could have got into P4, but that Red Bull, it's not as quick as you think. It's not as quick as you think. That Red Bull car is not that good of a car. It's not a front-running car. It's an upper midfield car that Max is making look like a front-running car. And I think every Grand Prix proves that. So yeah, good qualifying for Albon. Top 6. Yeah, only 4/10 off. If he gets a good start, gets past Ricciardo, then he should be able to, if he can try and get after Gasly, maybe finish in the top 4, which I think would be a big result for him. Right, let's have a look at the other comments in the chat. By the way, thank you, Astro Stevo, who says, cheers, Chazza, great to have you back. Thank you very much. By the way, when it comes to announcements for future, streams and videos and stuff like that, please stick around to the end of the stream, which will be probably in 10-15 minutes when the stream ends. Please stick around to the end so I can let you guys know what the content on the channel coming up is. And, what I'm doing tomorrow. Just to let you know, as I guess a spoiler alert, I will not be doing a race watch along tomorrow. The reason being is because this day of doing a practice and then a qualifying watch along was simply test out whether I wanted to do it again. And I think I do. I think I do want to do it again. So I'll try and bring it back later on in the season. But because of, you guys know why I stopped uploading and the problems I've had this year, I will not be coming back to a full-on schedule. I have now changed my schedule to something a lot more suitable and better for my mental health. And also, when it comes to watch-alongs, me doing them will be based on whether I am free or not, because I am actually going to be working my first ever job very soon, which might clash on certain times or days with certain sessions on a Friday or a Saturday. Yeah, if I'm only going to do watch-alongs, streams and videos if I feel like doing it, which is why I did the 2 streams today, because I wanted to do it. But I've definitely enjoyed it, and hopefully you guys have too. Right. Let's find some comments quick. Now I think Chazza is right. Bottas keeps Lewis honest in qualifying. He does. He does. You cannot deny that Valtteri in qualifying is a very quick driver. He always has been. Always has been. And I think if you put, say, and I've said this before, if you put Sebastian Vettel in that car alongside Valtteri Bottas, I think people would be very surprised as to how quick Valtteri Bottas is. And I'll call it now. I think if they were teammates, Bottas and Vettel in the same car, I think Valtteri would out-qualify Sebastian over the course of a season. I don't think he would finish ahead of him in the championship, because I think Sebastian is a lot better of a racer in terms of just pure pace and, looking after his tyres and all that. But in qualifying, Valtteri is right up there with one of the best on the grid. He's up there with Hamilton, Verstappen, Leclerc, Ricciardo. He is up there. And people may say, oh, he's not. Look at this season. How many times, even when he's not been on pole, has he pushed Lewis to the limit? And he's had some very impressive poles this year. Silverstone. To out-qualify Lewis Hamilton in the same car at Silverstone, you have to be immensely good to do that. You out-qualify Lewis Hamilton by a quarter of a second at the Nürburgring. You have to be immensely good to do that. And so on and so forth for out qualifying Lewis Hamilton at Imola by a tenth of a second. You've got to be immensely good to do that. The problem with Valtteri is not qualifying. It's the race. The problem with Valtteri is he can't, because of the lack of pace he tends to have in a race, and because he does struggle to look after tyres. That's why he never really progresses in a race if he doesn't start on pole. And that's why, really, if he's going to win a Grand Prix, he needs to get pole position. So hopefully, maybe not hopefully he wins. As long as we get a battle for victory, I don't really care who wins. But I will say, because, again, I want a battle for victory, it is good to see Valtteri on pole, because Lewis tomorrow will obviously be quicker than Bottas. How he'll get, if he does get the race win, how he gets it will be very interesting to see. Will he go for the move on track? Probably not. It's very hard to overtake at Imola, so he probably won't. I'd imagine he'll either try and go for it at the start, or he'll try and do an overcut to get past Valtteri, if Valtteri is ahead of him. Yeah, Astro Steve was saying, pity about Bottas most Sundays, though. That's the problem with Valtteri, is the performance on a Sunday. If he really worked on his tyre management, for example, he really would step up a level, and he would give Lewis a proper run for his money, qualifying all race, like Rosberg used to. Because if you look at Rosberg also was very quick in qualifying, but the difference between Rosberg and Bottas is Nico was able to look after his tyres and to be very consistent and consistently quick during a Grand Prix. That's what Valtteri doesn't have. That's why he can't compete with Hamilton 90% of the time over a Grand Prix, distance. So if he was to improve in that aspect, then he would be able to be a bit more Rosberg Hamilton rather than be what he is now, which is just a great qualifier, but kind of an average racer. As I just kicked something over in my studio. That's why you heard that bang. Right. The next picture, the last picture I'll post in a moment, will be the results, the final results of qualifying. I'll make sure to post that for you guys once they release it. The chat quick to find other comments here. Astro Stevo, fair enough. Glad you enjoy and want to keep doing these. Daz, it's okay if you don't understand. Best wishes and respect. Thank you very much, mate. Thank you very, very much. And thanks to Brabham as well, saying just do it as you please, no pressure. Yeah, it's because basically when I used to do streams all the time, it's not that I didn't want to do it, it's just there were certain days, and it got to the point of being quite a lot of days where I was, not sleeping properly for weeks. But, because I was constantly doing stuff with the channel and kind of disregarding quality for quantity, which I think you guys will notice once I get back into a full uploading schedule. That is the biggest that's going to be the biggest difference of the channel from now on through the winter as well, compared to when I stopped uploading, is instead of uploading more videos, it'll be less videos but with more quality. So for example, if you go back and watch my review of the Portuguese Grand Prix weekend, which is on the channel and in the description, that video, honestly, I think is a lot better of a video than my other reviews from back in the day. A lot better. And the Eiffel Grand Prix one, don't forget to check that out as well. So that's basically the biggest difference, is I'm taking a lot more time to work on, longer content and more quality content, which allows me to have breaks in between races instead of being full on all the time during a Formula 1 season and only really having a break during Christmas and New Year, which is basically what I was doing. Right, let me have a quick look to see if the results have popped up or not. By the way, just seen on Twitter, Pierre Gasly with P4 has equaled his best ever starting position. Now, the last time he started P4 was Hockenheim 2019. But that was in a Red Bull that was clearly quicker than the midfield. Now, he's in a midfield car. So, you got to say, an unbelievable qualifying performance. And if anything happens ahead to the front runners, he should have the pace to get the podium because he does have good race pace. The AlphaTauri over a race distance tends to be very consistent and quick. I don't see why he can't get a podium if something happens to the front three. If nothing happens, then he won't get a podium because, of course, he's not quick enough. And, of course, Max, Bottas and Hamilton are on a harder compound tyre, which will be more durable and be... it would just be better for them to extend their stint and pull out a gap over the rest as they all struggle a bit more on the soft compound tyre. But again, if anything happens, if Max has what he had at Mugello, an engine problem, or Monza where he had an engine problem, Gasly absolutely can get a podium. So can Ricciardo, so can Albon. I don't think Leclerc can, nor can anyone else behind him. So really, a surprise podium can only really come from Gasly or Ricciardo. I wouldn't say Albon getting on the podium is a surprise necessarily, but you know what I mean. Anyway, let's have another quick refresh. No. Yeah. Tonka, so is this track considered slow, fast, or somewhere in between? I would say fast. Because, Tamburello, you are, coming from quite a speed on the straight and down to a lot lower of speed. But the way you enter the Tamburello chicane, you're entering it at like medium speed, and then it just builds up and gets quicker once you exit it. The Villeneuve chicane is very quick. The only real slow corners are the not the Villeneuve chicane, the hairpin after the Villeneuve chicane. And maybe one of those corners, was it Aqua Minerale? Most of the corners, almost every corner is either a medium or high-speed corner. So I would say it's a high-speed track, which I think is why Ferrari have been so poor today. Because, of course, with their power issues, the higher speed the track, the more work is required, or the more power is required from the engine to do its bit to help the pace of the car. And we know with Ferrari that they have no power, really, in comparison to the others. So, yeah. That's why they're off the pace. And that's why, Ricciardo's up there, because Renault have done well at, say, more higher speed tracks. Yeah. Yeah, that's really, I'd say it's a high speed track. Especially if you go, if you go back and watch their qualifying sessions at Imola, say pre-2006, when they had the old Variante Alta chicane, where you just flew over the top of the curbs. Immensely quick track, especially in the race, where it was basically just qualifying stints all the time. Crystal Racing says, give Gasly another year or two, put him in the right car, and he's a future world champion in the making. There, I've said it. I'm not sure if I can say that yet. This is the problem, though, is because, you've got Mercedes dominating as they are. Let's say that dominance ends in 2022 and they drop and be a lot worse. Yeah, Gasly, if he's great, then great. And I think, honestly, Pierre Gasly will be in the Alpine F1 team, which is now Renault. I think he will be in that team for 2022 alongside Fernando Alonso. Because French driver, he's the best French driver by a mile on the grid. first French Grand Prix winner since Olivier Panis in '96. It's a PR dream for Gasly and for Renault or Alpine, whatever you want to call it. It's a PR dream. It really is. Let's say in 2022, it's like 2009, where anyone can really win, except for maybe a couple teams. Gasly is good, and let's say he continues this, level and maybe improves. He still is racing against Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Sebastian Vettel, Daniel Ricciardo. Those are some very great drivers. And yeah, if Gasly is good and great, maybe he can be in a title fight, but is he good enough to beat Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton if they're in cars that are comparable? No, he's not. But if he does get in a car that ends up being one of the quickest or the quickest on the grid, I don't see why not. But he just needs to be right place, right time for that. But if he's in an equal-ish car to, say, pace-wise of Hamilton and Verstappen, then I don't see it happening. I think he could end up winning a few more races if he gets in the right car for winning races. But World Championship winning level, I think he's going to need quite a lot. He's very good, but he's not quite there yet. To be honest, if you look at the grid, it's really hard to say who is definitely going to be a world champion. Lewis Hamilton, of course, world champion. Vettel, world champion. Raikkonen's won a world championship. But because of Hamilton's dominance, it's, stopping Max or Charles Leclerc or Ricciardo or Norris Sainz really having a go. And because of Mercedes' dominance also, they're stopping them having a go. I think Max Verstappen will definitely be a world champion, because even if Red Bull in the next 2 or 3 years are shit, if Mercedes, I'm not going to drop Lewis Hamilton, but you know what I mean, if Lewis Hamilton leaves that team, they are going to go for Max Verstappen without a doubt, because there's already, I think, a bit of a relationship there between Max and Toto Wolff. And yeah, it's, Max Verstappen at Mercedes. I think that's a very real possibility if Lewis Hamilton does leave. Let's say he leaves at the end of 2022. Very possible that Max Verstappen goes to Mercedes, and that would probably be what allows him then to become world champion. But after that, it's hard to say. It really does depend on, again, right team, right time, right place. Charles Leclerc is at Ferrari, of course, and Ferrari, I think, will get back to winning races again, but will they win a championship? I don't think they will under Binotto. I don't think they will. As long as Binotto is team boss, I don't think that's going to happen. So I think Leclerc is world champion level, but I don't think he'll win a championship at Ferrari as long as Binotto is team boss. But for everyone else after that, it's hard to say. Russell, he's very good, but is he a world champion level driver? Can't say yet. Norris, I don't think Norris is ever really going to be a world champion level driver. I think Norris definitely will be a driver who wins races and, produces spectacular overtakes and has plenty of podiums. He'll definitely come away from his Formula One career having a good career and a successful career. But I don't think it will be world championship winning career. Honestly, I think Lando's career is probably going to pan out a lot like Jenson Button's. Now, I know Jenson Button won a championship, but it was under very crazy circumstances. I mean, if you had said that he would have won a world championship at Brawn in 2009 and then gone to McLaren and raced at McLaren in 2010, 11 and 12, you would have thought Button would have won another championship in those years, but simply the McLaren car wasn't quick enough. If Norris, again, gets in a situation like Button had when he was at Brawn, where he was in the right car at the right time, yeah, it could happen. But realistically, I don't see Lando Norris winning a world championship. I think, again, race wins, yeah. Podiums, I think he'll have plenty of podiums. And he's had already a podium. But I don't think he'll ever get to that level where he's, you know, Max Verstappen or Charles Leclerc level. I just don't think he's quite at that level. And I don't, even though he's qualified ahead of Carlos Sainz today, I don't think he's as good as Carlos Sainz yet. So he is good. He's very good. But he still has room to improve, I think, Lando. Right, that was a lot of not ranting, but rambling. Let me, now that we're basically at the end of the stream, let me now post the final classification of results for qualifying here at Imola. So, send it out, and I'll get rid of this running order side. So, there you go. And I grab the image to make sure I can extend it. There you go. Let me get rid of the ticker as well quickly. So there you go. This is the final classification for qualifying at the 2020 Emilia Romagna Grand Prix at Imola. So Valtteri Bottas will start on pole position. Lewis Hamilton in second, Max Verstappen third, Pierre Gasly fourth, and Daniel Ricciardo in fifth. Rest of the top 10 is Alex Albon, Charles Leclerc, Daniel Kvyat, Lando Norris, and Carlos Sainz. Knockdown Q2, Sergio Perez, Esteban Ocon, George Russell, Sebastian Vettel, and Lance Stroll. And then knockdown Q1, Romain Grosjean, Kevin Magnussen, Kimi Räikkönen, Nicholas Latifi, and Antonio Giovinazzi. So there you go. That is qualifying for the 2020, again, Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. Thank you guys very much, by the way, for coming along for this stream. And for the stream earlier, thank you very much for coming back to these watch-alongs and sticking by me and being loyal. Cannot thank you guys enough. And I'll always remember that. So, yeah, thank you guys again. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new for more content like this. Don't forget to like this video, share this video, comment down below what you thought of qualifying. Do all that great stuff. Just to let you guys know, though, the plan. So tomorrow, I'll be live, not for the race, watch-along. I won't be doing a race watch-along tomorrow. But I will be live at around 2:30. Might be 2:45, but it's probably going to be around 2:30 UK time for a reaction to the Grand Prix. So make sure to come along to that and with me react to what happened at Imola. So hopefully I'll see you guys there. And yeah, thanks for coming along again. Don't forget to check out the videos I've done so far this week. The review of the Portuguese Grand Prix weekend. And practice one watch along from earlier. And as well, as I've said, like, share, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Don't forget to join our Discord server. Link below in the description. And I'm sure Rooksfoot or someone has posted a link of that in the live chat. And as well, if you want to, you know, if you're looking to advertise on the channel, or if you want to contact me for some business reason, my email is in the description. Or if you want to contact me for whatever reason, then my email again is in the description. chazzahdf1@gmail.com. But guys, until the race reaction at about 2:30 PM UK time tomorrow for the 2020 Emilia Romagna Grand Prix at Imola, it has been me, ChazzaHD. Goodbye.